All right, this is one of the more challenging parts of ordering real numbers, where we are going to be putting numbers that are in a different format than you might be used to in order from least to greatest. Now, the great news is that this is a skill that you have been practicing, since you were in first, second, third grade. So it's just numbers in a different format. Okay, so if you look at what's on the screen here, this is a way to approximate numbers that might require a little bit more specificity, okay? But we will get back to that in just a second. Okay, first things first, as always, I'm going to move over to the screen where we can actually write. Now, the numbers that I want to go ahead and put in order are the square root of 17 minus 2, the 1 plus pi over 2, 12 over 5, and 2.5. Now, certain ones of these numbers we actually have been dealing with. So for instance, 2.5, that's going to be a number that's a definite. We don't really have to do much with it. 3, if you notice, we can actually look at that number and convert it to a decimal probably as well. Or I know that we can. We can actually approximate this one perfectly as a decimal. There's another way to do that. And then we have the square root of 17 minus 2. Now that probably is going to be the one that is the most challenging for us to work with. But again, not something that is going to be completely out of whack for us to work with. Okay, so first things first, let's go ahead and I would like to start with the one that might appear the most difficult. Okay, and this is the one that is listed as number 1. Square root of 17 minus 2. So in my comparing irrationals video, we looked at how we would actually use a chart like this where we have all of our squares, and square root information all listed in one place. So the square root of 17, where is that going to fall? Okay, now it's going to fall somewhere in here between 16, the square root of 16, and the square root of 25. Because it's the square root of 17, it's going to probably be closer to 4, and that's going to become important in just a moment. Okay, so for now, we're going to approximate it to be somewhere between 4 and 5. If I were to take the 4 and 5 and put that together, 4 and 5 is going to be what? 4 and 5 is going to be 9. 9 divided by 2 is going to be what? 9 divided by 2 is going to be, 9 divided by 2 is going to be 4.5, okay? So if I look at the square root of 17, the approximation is going to be 4.5, somewhere in there. So if I want to go ahead and take that entire number 1, the square root of 17 minus 2, if I were to take that and say 4.5 minus 2, that's going to give me about what? 2.5. Okay, but I know that the square root of 17 is probably going to be a little bit more than this, so maybe that's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4 point something, 4.1, 4.2, somewhere in there. Okay, and again, that's going to help us in just a moment. Looking at number 2, I have 1 plus, I know that the approximate value of pi is going to be 3.14 over 2. So what I want to do is I want to evaluate this first. This is going to become 1 plus, and through the magic of YouTube, if you were to divide 3.14 divided by 2, that's going to give us 1.57. I'm going to add those up, and that's going to be 2.57. Okay? Now, looking at 3, I know that I can also convert 12 over 5 to a decimal. 12 divided by 5, or 12 over 5. Remember, a fraction is just a simplified way of saying that I need to divide. So 12 divided by 5 is equal to, and again, through the magic of YouTube, okay, 12 divided by 5 is going to be what? I want you to go ahead and divide that. Pause it for just a second. As soon as you are ready, I want you to come back. Okay, now I'm assuming that you have divided it out. The answer is going to be 2.4. Okay, so that's 2.4. Now, slowly but surely, what I'm doing is I'm working my way here to figuring out how to put these items in order from least to greatest as I have it written here. So I've approximated this to be about 2.5. This is going to be about 2.57. This is going to be 2.4. And then for that fourth box, I have a value that I know for a fact that it is 2.5. There's no way around it. That is 2.5. Okay. Now at this point, it looks to be that we have a little bit of an issue. Okay. What is that issue? It looks to be that these two are approximately the same. Now, so remember I warned you at the beginning that it was going to be important where the square root of 17 fell, okay? So I need to get a better approximation for what the square root of 17 is, because I know that this is definitely 2.5. This is only an approximation based on us taking the mean or the average of those two numbers. So let's get a little bit more specific. Okay, so if I wanted to find the square root of 17, I know that it's going to fall closer to the square root of 16, so I know it's going to be somewhere closer to the number 4 as opposed to the middle or closer to 5. So what I want to do here is I want to look at the square root of, the squared version of 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3. Okay, because I know that when I multiply these by each other, that's going to give me a number which I can then take the square root of and get it back to that particular number. So again, through the magic of YouTube, what I've done is I went ahead and I multiplied 4.1 squared, I've multiplied 4.2 squared, and I multiplied 4.3 squared. Okay, just to see what where 17 is going to fall closer to, okay? So 4.1 squared is going to be 16.81. 4.2 squared is going to be 17.64. And then 4.3 squared is going to be 18.49, okay? So I want to try to get a better approximation of actually where 17 would be. So 17 is going to fall somewhere between where? It's going to fall somewhere between there and there. So I want to get a better approximation. So I'm going to take 4.1 and 4.2. I'm going to add those up, then take the average. The average is going to be 4.15. So the best approximation is actually going to be 4.15. So I'm actually going to start at the beginning trying to evaluate the square root of 17 minus 2. So that's actually going to be 4.15 minus 2, which is actually going to come up to be 2.15. Now, this is just a matter of me putting these things in order. I have the decimal approximation. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put them in order using the original format, okay? So I want to go from least to greatest. So the least is going to be what? The square root of 17 minus 2, because that was 2.15. I have that done. Okay, I'm going to check that off. Next. What's next? You guessed it. It's going to be number 3, which was 12 over 5. What's next? We know that that definite value of 2.5 is going to come next, so 2.5 is next. And then lastly, what is next? It's going to be number 2 at 1 plus pi over 2. Okay? So it is just that simple for us to figure it out. I mean, it's a little difficulty on that difficulty scale, but through working at it over and over again, practicing, it's going to get better. Now, as always, you have the option to ask me again in class. You may watch this video again, or you may just show up at tutorial for a little bit more one-on-one situation. There are normally 10 people in the room, but it's a little bit better than the actual class period. You can actually specifically ask me what your question is. I just want you to come to tutorials actually with something in mind to discuss. And if there's nothing else, I will see you in class tomorrow.